Hello, Sonor family. Jules here, and we're going to talk about strainers today, throw-offs, and a problem that happens with them over time. We're also going to look at several of them from over the years that Sonor has offered, starting with the one that somewhat resembles the Ludwig P85. And we're going to look at the ones in the interim and then the current ones, and just talk about several attributes of each and how they've actually improved them over time and brought down the profile, which has added benefit as well. So on the top row is the current and most recently former models, and then in no particular order, by the way. And then the second row is the ones that we mentioned that looked a lot like the Ludwig P85. And then the bottom, it's not really a row, but the bottom section down there is a disassembled throw off. And uh, disassembly of that is very easy. The best way to get that thing put back together, having, taken it apart myself, is just, wait till you're in your 50s and you can't see worth a shit. And then you'll just wind up putting all that in a little package and putting it out of the way somewhere and grabbing one that's still put together. So that's my best advice on that. On a serious note, it obviously goes back together. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes. Now take a look at that row of throw-offs. One of those came off of a D500. So think like an investigator. Which one of those can you definitely tell came off the D500? So uh, one little hint, 5-inch deep shell. One we can rule out the second one from the left because we've already mentioned the fact that it came off of a 4 series. So if you haven't figured it out, the one on the far right came off the D500. That lever stuck above the die-cast hoop. And what apparently happened is that somewhere along the way, somebody was packing up drums, and this was very likely out on a tour, and somebody who's packing up drums did not disengage the snare wires, tried to force close the case, and when they did, it bent that lever. So the lever is not only bent, but it's also somewhat twisted. And it's pretty sad that, you know, that would happen to something like that. And that can be fixed. It's going to take some time and a little patience there, but that can be straightened out properly. And if you look in the row there, going back to that picture, you can see that the one fourth from the left, I believe it's bent in another direction as well. So these longer levers really didn't fare very well in the long run. And some other issues that happened, we're going to look at a video in a minute here, but when the semi-solid rivets start to loosen up that hold some of the parts together that are actually moving parts, it puts this whole thing in a bind, especially when you've got the snares pretty tight. And so these things like to bind up, and they're real easy to bend once they get where they're binding up. And so we're going to look at what happens there and how to fix that. This is a group shot of the original one and the two that were kind of intermediate. And the chrome one was a little bit more high end than the black one. The black one, they took an ugly chrome thing and made it even uglier, putting it in the black, if you ask me. And that's a personal opinion. You may disagree with that, but those two in the middle really look boxy, and even installed on a snare drum, they just didn't look that good. Functionally, they're not much different than the one on the far right, but the one on the far right, they went back to the chromed metal knob, which I think is class all day long, and they went to a sleeker design, which really looks much better on a completed snare drum, in my opinion. Now, some other things to notice: the profile on these is much shorter. I have measured the range of throw on all of these, and they're all about 3/8 of an inch. So even though you've squashed the height of this thing, it still gives you just as much drop on your snare wires, referring to the three on the right, as the one on the left did. So it's not like now we've got a short range of throw that might cause us a problem getting the snare wires off. That's obviously not a problem, because if it was, we would sure know it by now. But the range of throw is the same. What is different, along with the overall profile, is the levers are much shorter, and even though they're not as long, they're still about as thick. So, as you know, a longer item gives you more leverage, which means if you over tighten your snare wires, that throw off on the left is going to give you leverage to sit there and keep pulling, giving you power, leverage, and until you tear something up or stretch or something. The ones on the right, they've got every bit of the power you need to engage and disengage your snare wires. If you're having trouble with those, either you've got a problem, you may have a binding problem that we're going to look at in the video here in a few minutes, or there may be an issue somewhere within the workings of the mechanism, or you just got your wires too tight. And if you're having that kind of a problem, you need to troubleshoot that and get that figured out. These shorter levers, just by design, are going to be almost impossible to bend. So the newer design is much better. You get as much travel on the mechanism, and you got a much shorter profile, which keeps that from towering over the top of the snare drum when you don't disengage the wires. Nothing good comes out of having a throw off piece sticking beyond one of the hoops of the drum. That's just not a good plan. Sonor has eliminated that with these newer throw offs. Now, even though this is an older throw off mechanism I'm showing you in the video here, um, they're all built the same. So, do you see the gap in between these parts and how much play and wiggle room there is? This semi-solid rivet has lost its strength over time, and it needs to be recompressed. And you can do that. I probably am going to look for a way to order some more appropriately sized semi-solid rivets so I can reshoot fresh rivets. I do have experience in manufacturing at an aircraft plant. I worked in subassembly and we shot a lot of rivets somewhat similar to this. And so you've got to be careful not to bind everything up where nothing wants to move. You also don't want to shank the rivet, which means that when you shoot it, you have a big gap between your two parts. So the rivet actually expands between the two parts. And also spent time in inspection and planning slash production control. So got a pretty good cross view of operations there. I was never an engineer. However, I did work with engineers a lot, and they called on me for things, as a matter of fact, from time to time, if you can believe that. So in this video, I've actually what I did is I took a steel ball and put it inside the hollow section there, and I used a plate and put it on a steel plate and put it on the flat side of the rivet, and I used vice grips to carefully compress those. The results are not unsatisfactory. What I don't like is that it wasn't an even spread on the hollow side. It kind of favored one side. Plus, the rivet already lost its strength and stretched. Now we've pressed it back into shape somewhat. So the strength it lost the first time, it's going to lose again. So really a good rebuild is going to include drilling out the hollow side of that, punching the rivet out, and replacing that rivet. And I am going to work on getting a fix for that. So basically, what I'm going to do, I'm going to offer a service to replace or remove and replace these rivets on worn mechanisms, and or offer a swap out service. I'm just going to fix it up where we can just replace maybe this arm right here and do a swap out on that. So I'm working on options. I'm working on a plan to get this all going, and it'll be another service. Now keep in mind too, even though this is an older mechanism, the older throw off, the newer throw offs operate the same way. So over time, as that is used more and more and more, you're going to likely see some play in the mechanism. And I do have uh, the newer throw offs that do have that wear on there. And I think a lot of that is attributed to people over tightening the snare wires. I just, I've seen a lot of people over the years that just really crank those down, and they surely don't require that. So I have not found the be all end all solution to the rivet issue yet. I'm just telling you where I'm at with it now. So that's a quick overview of the Sonor Throw-Offs. I hope this has somehow been of some benefit to you. If you're having problems with play and your throw-off, this kind of gives you an idea. If you didn't find it yourself, this gives you an idea of where your trouble is, and you can try to come up with some kind of fix on your own. If you're having problems with your throw-off binding up, or you've got a lot of play in there from what I've shown you, if you don't want to try to fix that yourself, what I can do is I can take one of mine and uh, get it working properly, and then we can do a swap. I would like a little bit of compensation for my knowledge, my tools, and my time. But anyway, if you need something, just drummonstage@gmail.com. If you've got any ideas for any other videos, I'll be more than happy to entertain any ideas anybody gives me. Looking to really expand the channel over coming months. And I appreciate everybody that takes time to watch these. Uh, you can actually say thanks now monetarily through the channel if you look down there below the video. I hate to bring that up, and I'm not going to do that very often, but that's a new feature that I have available, and any little thing helps. So if you want to support the channel, several ways to do that, and I sure appreciate all of your time and attention. Thank you.